Welcome to the Golden State Media Concepts, America's Still Beautiful podcast, a weekly news podcast covering all the top positive and uplifting news stories. Are you tired of the same old news? Are you sick of the seemingly endless political spin and negativity? We cover stories that will inspire, uplift, and remind you of the good in the world. Tune into the Golden State Media Concepts, America's Still Beautiful podcast to get all the great and positive news stories of today.
Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC America's Still Beautiful podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Emily Ferrier, here to bring you some uplifting stories in these trying times. For our first story, this sweet golden retriever is showing that dogs aren't just a man's best friend. They're also a man's best neighbor, too. 71-year-old Renee Hellman is just one of many Colorado residents who've been isolating themselves in their homes for fear of risking exposure to the novel coronavirus. Since Hellman is also particularly vulnerable to the virus because of her chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, she's been quarantined inside her home in Manitou Springs for more than 3 weeks. Hellman's neighbor of 10 years, Karen Eveleth, knew that she wanted to do something to help her senior neighbor in quarantine, but she didn't know how to offer any assistance without potentially endangering Hellman. In a stroke of genius, Evelyn then taught her pet dog, Sundance, how to deliver groceries to Hellman's door. Not only has Sundance been delivering her food and meals to Hellman, she's also been retrieving her mail from the postal box. I make meals for her, and also Sundance brings the empty bowls, Evelyn told CNN. He's a humble hero. When he hears something drop, he knows he's got to get that for Mom because I have a bad back. He also gets the mail. I've had the carrier leave the box open. Sonny also has 2 siblings, but delivery and pickup is not in their DNA. With Sundance's daily visits to cheer her up in isolation, Hellman is calling the golden retriever her humble hero. In other news, when Americans started realizing that restaurants and bars were going to be among the worst hit businesses, they started advocating on social media that people buy gift cards for their favorite establishments to keep them in business. The other folks that needed extra compassion are the nurses and doctors working overtime. One creative restaurant in California put the 2 groups together and offered to deliver via catering service to the stressed healthcare workers at Stanford Hospital. And their business of kindness is booming, so much that they were able to rehire restaurant workers for the new takeout service. In New Jersey, 16-year-old Drew and 13-year-old Heather Paglia picked up the idea and created a GoFundMe campaign in order to help small businesses and healthcare heroes by purchasing food and gift cards to deliver food to people impacted the most. One local hospital, CentraState, asked for gift cards so that they can pass them on to patients being released from hospitals to provide food for them and to make sure that they stay home. Since launching the crowdfunding page, the siblings have managed to raise more than $2,250, although they hope to garner many more donations to reach their $20,000 goal. As a means of thanking their employees for their essential work, this is another story, sorry. As a means of thanking their employees for their essential work during the COVID-19 outbreaks, one of the largest grocery store chains in America is offering a hero bonus to all of their hourly workers. Kroger, which is the United States' largest supermarket by revenue and the second largest general retailer, announced this week that they would be giving all hourly frontline grocery supply chain, manufacturing, pharmacy, and call center associates a temporary raise of $2 premium above their standard base rate of pay. The bonus will be applied to hours worked from March 29th through to April 18th. The premium will also be dispersed weekly to ensure associates have access to additional cash. Our associates have displayed true actions of a hero, working tirelessly on the front lines to ensure that everyone has access to affordable, fresh food and essentials during this national emergency. That comes from Rodney McMullen, who is Kroger's chairman and CEO. The hero bonus is just one more way that we continue to convey our thanks and gratitude, not only to our existing associates, but the more than 30,000 new hires who've just joined in the past 2 weeks, and those who will soon join the Kroger family of companies. This is not the company's first gesture of gratitude towards its workers. In addition to publishing new sanitation guidelines and shoring up employee benefits during the coronavirus, Kroger also announced on March 21st that they would be giving their employees a one-time appreciation bonus of $300 to every full-time associate and $150 to every part-time associate. Recently, we announced the appreciation bonus for our hourly workers, frontline associates. The gesture was to thank our associates for everything they've done during the past few weeks. Tim Massa, Kroger's Senior Vice President and Chief People Officer, says, however, we recognize that this crisis is far from over. And reflecting on associate feedback, working together with our union partners, we want to further acknowledge our terrific team for their hard work to date, as well as for the yet to come. And that's not the only thing that Kroger did. Rather than leave a community without a grocery store, Kroger's supermarket chain donated one of their closed stores to a competing company. After Kroger closed their Orange Mound located in Memphis, the local residents were forced to travel to the Kroger location in Union, which can be a tedious 30-minute bus ride with groceries in hand. Community leaders then threatened to boycott the chain unless they were given another fully sized serviced grocery store to suit their needs. Kroger representatives closed the location, tried to pass the property to a Superior, a family-owned grocery store chain with several branches in the city, but they just opened another branch and they didn't have the fiscal resources to open up another store. After more than a year of the financial preparation, Kroger representatives donated $500,000 to the facility to Superior. So it's not the first good deed that they've done. They've been doing some pretty incredible stuff. So we're going to have to take a break now, but well done to those people and businesses. And when we come back, we have some other good news coming from South Bend, Indiana. So we will talk about that. and what they did there when we return from our break. So stay tuned for that and don't go anywhere. Stay tuned for our next story. In 2008, the U.S. national debt was $10 trillion. Today, it's over $23 trillion, and it's rising like a hockey stick. If you don't think that we're sitting on a house of cards, you're living with your head in the sand. But since you're listening to my podcast, you're clearly smarter than the average American. So, what's your plan? Can you afford another hit to your retirement like the last downturn when the S&P dropped 50%? Look back historically. When the bottom falls out of everything else, gold tends to safeguard savings. And right now, thanks to a little-known IRS tax law, you can even move your IRA or eligible 401k to an IRA backed by physical gold and silver. It's perfect for those who want to protect their hard-earned retirement savings from any future geopolitical uncertainty. Birch Gold Group has thousands of satisfied customers, countless 5-star reviews, and an A+ rating with BBB. Contact Birch Gold to request free info kits on physical precious metals. See if diversifying into gold and silver makes sense for you.
The GSMC Life and Happiness podcast takes you on a journey of exploration. We'll discuss tried and true methods alongside the latest trends of how to best live your life to its fullest and happiest. From psychology to meditation, science to self-help books, the GSMC Life and Happiness podcast will help you to discover what makes you happy and how you can live life being the best you possible. Download the GSMC Life and Happiness podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Welcome back. So before the break, we were talking about the generosity of store owners as well as a very eager puppy. And now, the first surge of rapid response to the pandemic has receded and left necessary social distancing, self-isolation, and quarantine in its wake, with no definite end date in sight. Millions are now facing the effects of loneliness, cabin fever, life in too close quarters, and asking how they can still find community when they're told to be apart. This neighborhood is responding in a creative way and an uplifting way in an interactive game of I Spy, in which people of any age can participate. Emily Nelson, a resident of the Sunnymead neighborhood in South Bend, Indiana, created the game for St. Patrick's Day using the Neighborhood Association Facebook group. She asked residents to tape paper shamrocks on their front windows or to draw them in chalk on their driveways, anything that would be visible to kids walking by on the sidewalk, for a shamrock scavenger hunt. Neighborhood kids could tally up how many they spied in a Facebook group. The neighborhood response was tremendous. So Nelson drew up a calendar throughout mid-April through to mid-April with other themed days, including Disney characters, Mario hearts for health workers, dinosaurs, and a bunny hunt. To make the outings even more fun, Nelson encouraged the walkers to embrace the themes by dressing in costume. For any neighbors who didn't have themed objects, decorations, or chalk to use, another neighborhood resident put together packets of coloring sheets so that she could drop off them in mail slots as requested. Participation has been high. According to Nelson, she and her family saw more than 28 Disney characters posted around the neighborhood in the most recent day, March 21st, including Princess dolls and King Louie from Jungle Book. Even the mailman, according to one resident, took notice and asked about the sudden appearance of Disney items in the windows. Kids are not the only ones who've been excited. Neighbor Carol Evans wrote to Nielsen on the Facebook page saying, "We had a blast looking at the characters today. What a fun thing for us all to do. Thank you for putting this into motion, and thank you to all of our neighbors who are participating, visiting on front porches, chatting on sidewalks, and playing impromptu football games in the nearby school's baseball field are some of the unusual ways this neighborhood stays close." Now, thanks to Nielsen's I Spy huts, grateful community members are a little bit closer to stay in touch. Another piece of news. An anonymous Maryland mother is being hailed for leaving out hundreds of bagged lunches for her community during the shutdowns. The unidentified do-gooder has been leaving these healthy meals on a tent-sheltered table in a busy intersection in Severna Park. Hanging from the table is a sign that reads, "For anyone who needs it, I will be leaving some healthy snack lunches on this table for you, and if you are hungry and need to eat." Made with love by a neighborhood mom in a clean and sanitized kitchen. The table has been stocked with free lunches between 11 a.m. and 1:30 p.m. every day for a number of weeks. For Kimberly Gussow, a mother of two who's been scrimping savings to make ends, she works from home, and the kids have a much appreciated gesture of kindness during the quarantine. This makes me embrace my community even more. I'm proud to live here, Gussow told ABC News. It's great to show ourselves that it needs to be about others too. The table even caught the eye of Delegate Nick Kipke, who praised the labor of love on his Facebook page, saying, "Things like this really lift my spirits. It's great to see so many in our community doing so much to care for others during this time." In other positive news, a number of NBA players who've recovered from COVID-19 are now becoming role models for new national healthcare initiatives to treat patients who are still sick with an experimental therapy. Just days after the U.S. Food and Drug Administration approved testing of convalescent plasma treatment, physicians in the Methodist Hospital in Houston, Texas, became the first in the nation to test therapy on a small group of patients this week. The treatment involves drawing blood plasma out of an individual who's built up an immunity to the virus as a result of their recovery. The plasma, which is chock full of healthy antibodies that have grown to fight the virus, is then injected into a sick person so that the antibodies can theoretically attack the virus of its new host. Since hospitals around the country are searching for various recovered COVID-19 patients to donate blood plasma, several NBA players are now cooperating with the National COVID-19 Convalescent Plasma Project to volunteer as donors. Dr. Michael Joyner, who's a member of the project's leadership, told ABC News that the 4 basketball players are participating in the program, although 3 of the players have not yet been identified. Boston Celtics guard Marcus Smart confirmed to the news outlet through his agent that he is donating blood plasma by the Massachusetts Department of Health this week. Not only is he applauding Smart's efforts, Joyner is applauding Smart's efforts as a role model for other recovering patients. He says that the athletes who donated blood plasma are likely to be ideal candidates for the treatment. These are big men with huge blood volumes, and as a result, They have a lot of plasma volume. Frequently, people who are physically trained also have an increase in their plasma volume from what you would expect from them from just being regular-sized guys. We even believe the treatment can be disease-modifying and reduce duration of severity in patients. The NBA has also donated $100,000 to the project, and if you would like to learn more about the project, and if you qualify for that and would like to donate blood plasma to participating hospitals, be sure to check out the CCPP19 website. And when we come back, we have more positive news. We've got a very sweet little story about a new thing coming out that is hopefully going to be promoting a little bit of global optimism. And we have a couple of little funny stories as well, just to keep everyone's spirits up as much as possible. That's what I'm trying to do here with this. So stay tuned, because we have some more positive stuff coming up when we get back from our break. So don't go anywhere, because there will be more to come after this.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Welcome back. So before the break, we were talking about the new idea of therapy for blood plasma. So if you have recovered from COVID-19 and you have the ability to donate your plasma for patients in need, then you can do that. And now, this week in National Geographic, they've released the trailer for a new documentary about the incredible life of scientist and activist Jane Goodall. And it's already shaping up to be a much-needed lesson in global optimism. The 2-hour documentary, Jane Goodall, The Hope, is set to premiere on National Geographic, Nat Geo Wild, and Nat Geo Mundo on Earth Day, which is April the 22nd. The invigorating trailer offers a glimpse into how the film will celebrate the 60-year career of the activist, and how she's still working tirelessly to promote messages of hope for the Earth. At age 26, Jane Goodall's discovery of the chimpanzees discovery that the chimpanzees make and use tools shook the foundations of modern society and redefined the relationship between humans and the rest of the animal kingdom, reads the trailer summary. In 1977, she founded the Jane Goodall Institute to inspire hope throughout action in the world for generations to come. Today, Jane is an author, advocate, and public speaker, traveling on average between 300 days per year and sharing her reasons for hope and a message that we can each make a difference to change and create a better world for all every single day. So that's something to look forward to coming out on Earth Day, a celebration of 60 years of work from Jane Goodall. And in funny news, for several weeks now, Jimmy Fallon has been broadcasting from his home, producing the Tonight Show at Home edition, and he's been using his 50 million Twitter followers to provide much-needed comic relief during the self-isolation. Last week, Good News Network brought you the hilarious results of Fallon's brilliant fans describing the quarantine in 6 words. We reported on that as well. I relayed the report from Good News Network. And reports such as the 6-word quarantine phrases, day 1, ate all the snacks. And he's made another one of these fun, threads that you could tweet at, where he wanted hashtags tweeting new movie titles for sequels made in quarantine. One said Edward Washing Hands and Don't Stand By Me. And here are some of the favorites from Good News Network. Honey, I Flunked the Kids. Quarantine the movie. A Star is Bored. Quarantine the movie. Doolittle. Quarantine a movie. Avengers. Infinity Conference Calls. Goodwill Hunting for Toilet Paper. Quarantine the movie. Gloves Actually. Quarantine the movie. I really like that one. The Devil Wears Sweatpants. Quarantine the movie. Stay at Home Alone. Quarantine the movie. It's a good message. Ferris Bueller's Year Off. Quarantine the movie. My Best Friend's Wedding got canceled. Quarantine the movie. And the final one, 50 Shades of Grey Roots. Quarantine the movie. So those are all the top ones from the Good News Network. I thought they were very clever and very funny. So just some fun things that you can do during your quarantine, just to keep spirits up and to keep having fun with your family or your friends or your partner, whoever you're, whoever you're quarantining. Around the House in 80 Days is another one. Back to the Futon. The Intensive Care Bears. 10 Things I Hate About Zoom. The Good, the Bad, and the Fauci. The Face Masks. That's very good. Isolation Age. Teleworking Girl. The Cat Wears Prada. Very good. Skype with a Vampire. It's good. Close Encounters of the Furred Kind. Cats. Honey, I Drank the Kids. Straight Outta Costco. Very good, very good. The Infectious Case of Benjamin Button. Harsh. Buried. 5 Feet Apart. Bridget Jones' Quarantine Diary. Love Under Lockdown. I would actually really like to watch that. Let's see what else. Zoomlander. Once Upon a Time in a Grocery Store. When Harry Infected Sally. Willy Wonka and the Toilet Paper Factory. National Lampoon's Canceled Vacation. Let's see. National treasure, but instead of the national treasure, it's toilet paper. Harry Potter in the Closure of Hogwarts. And here's just a quote that would have changed. Office Space. Yeah, if you could not come in Saturday, that would be great. Stay in instead of get out. Pretty in Isolation instead of Pretty in Pink. Sleeping 9 to 5. Very good. And I liked 50 Shades. Charlie and the Sanitizer Factory, also a good one. And Harry Potter and the Chamber of Quarantine. If you guys have some good ones, let us know. Or no encounters of any kind, also very good. Yeah, I loved this. I loved reading those. I thought they were a real pick-me-up, real funny stuff. And hopefully he keeps us entertained with some more of these silly hashtags that we can keep relaying and keep spirits up with. We're going to take another break now. And when we come back, some more fun stories to come.
Want to find out what movies to go see? Then check out the GSMC Movie Podcast. It's your ticket to the latest movies, whether it's a new blockbuster event, romantic, comedy, or action flick. This show has got it all covered. They talk some what to go see now. Don't bother. What's hot on Netflix and everything in between. That's GSMCpodcast.com/movie-podcast. When it's all about the movies, it has to be this new show. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back. Before the break, we were talking about some funny stuff, some funny little games that Jimmy Fallon has posted for us to play during quarantine. And now, completely circumnavigating the problem of supply shortages for things like hand sanitizer, Akira Robotics has founded at Trinity College in Ireland, has developed a robot that emits ultraviolet irradiated light to kill viruses, bacteria, and other harmful germs from hospital floors and other surfaces. Sweetly named Robot Violet, it's clinically proven to kill viruses and sanitize entire hospital rooms in half the time it would take to do the same task using conventional deep cleaning approaches. The long tubular light looks like one you might see in a warehouse or factory, but floats around the room as if a Jedi lightsaber were mounted on a Roomba vacuum. Its Violet's powers come from ultraviolet rays shot at very short wavelengths. These break down the DNA in microbes and stop them from being able to replicate and can arrest the spread of germs, ideally including COVID-19, though they are still awaiting test results on this to see if the robot can be relied upon to remove it. Many surfaces, especially those on various hospital equipment, have needed to be washed by hand. Inventor Connor McGinn says that the robot would greatly enhance this cleaning process, although hospitals that are swamped with patients to clean rooms and equipment without any human being present. This system could reduce dependency on the use of chemical-based solutions, which may be effective but require some room to be vacated for several hours during sterilization making them impractical for many parts of the hospital, said McGinn on Twitter. While UV rays are damaging to humans, they cannot be used to sterilize hands or other areas of the skin. An onboard AI system automatically shuts off violet light if it detects that somebody has moved in front of it. The petite startup of only 7 people hope to produce 50 units in the coming weeks. Their first robot possibly ready for duty by Easter. If estimations about the upcoming curve are accurate, the hospitals will need the innovations like this to help flatten the curve and prevent the spread with hospital settings. We are very happy with the progress we're making, McGinn told the Irish Times. Another story. A middle school teacher from South Dakota is being praised for going above and beyond the call of duty to help one of his students with her math homework, all while respecting social distance guidelines. Last week, 12-year-old Riley Anderson had been having trouble understanding how to graph an algebraic function. In addition to her school being closed amidst the shutdowns, her parents weren't home to help her with the equation. Her mom had a history of getting algebra questions wrong anyway, according to Riley. After Riley emailed her math teacher, Chris Waba, for the help, he responded with some written instructions on how to do the equations, but she was still having trouble. Since Waba knew where the student lived down the street from his house in Madison, he grabbed a whiteboard and marched over to her door so that he could illustrate the points from outside of the glass. He spent the next 10 minutes giving a one-on-one math lesson to Riley as she took notes from inside her home. I'm a better communicator face-to-face than on the telephone, and I think students learn better that way anyway, said Waba, who'd been a math teacher for 27 years. Teachers across the nation have been thrown into a situation like this. I think we're all more comfortable with being in front of our classes, and that's where we'd rather be. When it seemed like Riley had finally grasped the concept, Waba bid her adieu and headed home. Before he left, however, Riley's father, Josh Anderson, snapped a photo of the heartwarming interaction and posted it on Twitter. Although thousands of social media users have praised Waba for his dedication, he later insisted it was just part of the job. That's what teachers are for, those smiles, Waba told the news outlet. This is the joy of being a teacher, and that's what we do it for. That's so sweet. In another sort of fun thing that I saw on social media, isolated art lovers are recreating masterpieces using everyday objects, and it is quite fun. You should definitely check this out on the goodnewsnetwork.org. They are recreating artwork with things found around the house. So, like all of these famous, like Madonna and Child, the fresca Madonna and Child, this person is created with their dog as the baby Jesus. Mirabelle from Getty Museum by Helen Frankenthaler is recreated with toilet paper. And a family recreating sailors in a boat. A man wearing a brown towel recreating a pipe. There are so many of these that I absolutely love. You should definitely check them out. They're very funny. And if you're in the mood for art, remember that you can tour 2,500 world-famous museums in the comfort of your own home. Remember, Google Arts and Culture partnered with all of these museums and galleries around the world to offer virtual tours, online displays of their collections, to surfers. The tours allow people to wander through the interiors of the world's most famous museums, similarly to Google Street View. I know I've been using a lot of that recently. It's kind of interesting to wander through. The tech company is partnered with such prestigious institutions such as the Musée d'Orsay in Paris, the Paul Getty Museum in LA, the Uffizi Gallery of Florence, the Guggenheim in New York, just to name a few from Google's top 10 shortlist. So there's loads of things that you can get into while you're in isolation and make creative things out of it, such as recreating the works of art at home with your family or whoever you're isolated with, or by yourself, like me. You know, a little fun thing for you to do while you're in isolation. And on that note, we're going to have to take another break. But when we come back, we have got some other news, some exciting environmental developments that have come out that are quite positive. And it's going to be a nice, heartwarming story about environmental positivity when we return from the break.
Pets bring such joy to our lives, and the GSMC Pets podcast is here to share in that joy. We'll tell stories of pets finding their forever homes, acting in unexpected ways, being helpful, or just being silly. Whether you love dogs, cats, llamas, reptiles, fish, or you've never met an animal you didn't like, the GSMC Pets podcast is for you.
All right, welcome back. So before the break, we were talking about some fun things that people are doing to recreate artwork. And now, contrary to the image of greedy fossil fuel billionaires lobbying politicians for favors, it is now the free market, not a world of governments that are doing the most advanced to use clean, renewable energy. In the most basic sense, it's no longer lucrative to invest in carbon emission heavy sources. Today, investing in coal projects is more expensive across the world energy markets than renewables. In as little as 10 years, it will be cheaper to build renewables than to run coal power resources, much less build new ones. How much more expensive? Well, right now, the report estimates that the cost of operating and investing in coal, not in Europe, but in the US, India, and China, is about 50% more expensive than renewables. And by 2030, that number doubles to 100%, assuming that market forces remain constant rather than intensify. The market is driving the low-carbon energy transition, but governments aren't listening, writes Matt Gray, co-head of Power and Utilities for Carbon Tracker, the co-author of a new global economic report about how coal investments, entitled How to Waste $500 billion. Renewables are outcompeting coal around the world, and proposed coal investments risk becoming stranded assets, which you could lock in high-cost coal power for decades. Indeed, the number of countries in which it's cheaper to invest and operate renewable energy assets could make some optimism about the future, since most underdeveloped Asian energy markets, as well as 3 biggest coal consumers on Earth, would save money switching to renewables, according to this report. However, most of these countries still have nationally planned coal power projects either in early investment stages or already in production. It is an economic term for an asset like a coal plant, which will cease to generate returns even before the end of its economic life. These carbon-heavy facilities not only slow rate of return and open the door for market competition for renewables, they are also becoming more expensive to invest, build, and operate. That's particularly why free market economic forces are working where many governments are failing. It costs a lot of money to build electrically generating resources, and since banks and financial institutions are the largest funders of energy projects, they simply aren't willing to finance coal power projects, choosing instead to invest in solar and wind resources. The government of Vietnam is currently considering backing away from 15 gigawatts of proposed coal power, as a financial constraint makes it harder for them to build new plants, which wants it to do so to increase economic development. The proposed projects would allocate 50% of energy production to coal-fired plants, but an end to the deal would see a drop in 37%, while others like hydroelectric and gas remain stable, and renewable energy swooping in much cheaper than the demand fill the gap supply. A report from Reuters found that coal power generation fell worldwide by 3% in 2019, and solar power contributed to 270 more terawatts, an additional 15% to grids. The research went on to illustrate how this growth would be needed every year for 15 years to meet the Paris Agreement targets. The power generation would also have to continue to fall from 3% to 11% to prevent the 1.5 degrees Celsius of warming. Although, the rough estimate of wiggle room needs to avoid the worst effects of global climate change, money talks. And if coal production will rise from 50% to 100% in the US, India, and 60% to 100% in China in just 10 years, it means that far from unlimited growth targets being met for investors, coal barons would have to cope with a 5% yearly rise in capital requirements, as well as any future blows coal might be forced to absorb, since carbon taxes, coal embargoes, and other legislative measures. And in other positive news, with environment, I cannot think of another time in the last million years our species has united against a common enemy, said David Sinclair, Harvard Medical School genetics professor, in an interview with Peter Demendis. We are stuck at home. We can either stay huddled in fear or use this as an activation moment. Instead of watching the endless stream of great TV, a team from Singularity University is spending their time engaging with thought leaders from around the world to problem solve for a better future. If we don't transform now, our leaders will take us back where we were and unprepared for a global pandemic, and not to mention climate change. This says Kent Langley, co-founder of EXO Foundation. Silicon Valley strategist and entrepreneur Salim Ismail, author of best-selling book Exponential Organizations, came up with the idea for the EXO World Summit. Let's convene our global leadership to reinvent it. I don't think this is an opportunity. I think it's an obligation. And true, the group's altruistic goals, true to the group's all proceeds for the environment will go towards funding programs that are developed. EXO World will feature speakers like Peter Demendis, Jason Silva, United Nations President Maria Fernanda, former Mexico President Vicente Fox, and various others. With a capacity of 100,000 attendees, the digital conference will feature entirely virtual main stage, expo booths, networking zones, individual session and panel rooms, digital entertainment, and contributions from celebrities and the heads of state. After each main session, breakout sessions will host a dynamic conversation with many languages and topics, and a digital goodie bag will be represented to each attendee. Teaming up with Singularity University and the 4,000 members of Open Expo are partners like X Prize Foundation, Abundance 360, Vortex High Five, Fast Track Institute, and others. Before, the events would cost thousands of dollars per person, but the price for this are set below $200 for more voices towards the conversation. Good News Network co-owner Anthony Samandi has secured a special rate for limited number of tickets for our viewers they said, for their viewers, for keynote sessions. So this is great news. And when we come back on this day in history, when we return.
The GSMC Life and Happiness Podcast takes you on a journey of exploration. We'll discuss tried and true methods alongside the latest trends of how to best live your life to its fullest and happiest. From psychology to meditation, science to self-help books, the GSMC Life and Happiness Podcast will help you to discover what makes you happy and how you can live life being the best you possible. Download the GSMC Life and Happiness Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Welcome back. So before the break, we were talking about the positive things happening with the environment following this. And now, on this day, 120 years ago, the Hollywood tour de force Spencer Tracy was born in Milwaukee. Only 2 leading men have been nominated for more Oscars than Tracy, who tied Paul Newman with 9 award-worthy performances, Jack Nicholson with 12, and Laurence Olivier with 10. In the 1930s, his career flourished, winning 2 consecutive Academy Awards for Best Leading Actor in 1937 for Captain Courageous, and in 1938 for Boys Town. In 1942, he appeared with Katharine Hepburn in Woman of the Year, beginning a partnership both on screen and in private, that lasted 25 years and led to 9 incredible movies, including his last film, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, which was completed 17 days before he passed away from heart disease and diabetes in 1967. Good news on this day in history. Anne Sullivan finally was able to break through the wall of isolation and hostility in order to teach the word water to Helen Keller, who could not see, hear, or speak until this gifted teacher entered into her life. The story is immortalized in the film Miracle Worker, starring Patty Duke as Helen Keller. So this was on this day in 1887. This is April 5th, by the way. This is today's news in April 5th, 1887. And happy birthday to General Colin Powell, who turns 82 years old today. He was born in 1937. The song We Are the World was played simultaneously by an estimated 5,000 radio stations around the globe in 1985 on this date. The trade union Solidarity was granted legal status in Poland in 1989 on today's date. Paul Newman won a court victory over Julius Gold to keep giving all profits from Newman Foods to charity in 1990. In Japan, the Akashi Keiko Bridge opened to traffic, becoming the largest suspension bridge over the world in 1998. 115 Chinese coal miners were freed as the world watched, accumulating 8 days of rescue efforts in a flooded mine following an accident that already killed 38 in 2010. And also on this day in 1614, the first interracial marriage was recorded in North America when Pocahontas, the Native American daughter of Chief Powhatan, married colonialist John Rolfe from the English settlement of Jamestown. Pocahontas' descendants, through their son Thomas, include members of the First Families of Virginia, First Ladies Edith Wilson and Nancy Reagan, and astronomer Percival Lowell. And on this day in 1722, Easter Island was first discovered and recorded by a European visitor. The Dutch explorer Jacob Roggeveen named it so because of they encountered it on Easter Sunday. The large stone statues, or mole, for which Easter Island is famous for, were carved by natives there between 1100 and 1680 using solidified volcanic ash found near an extinct volcano. A total of 887 monolithic stone statues have been inventoried, with many having torsos ending at the top of the thighs, although a small number are complete figures that kneel on bent knees with their hands over their stomachs. Each sculpture represents the deceased head of lineage of a couple that require a couple hundred men to relocate to other parts of the island. Some of the largest weighed 82 tons and were placed upright upon stone platforms facing the ocean. That was on Easter Sunday that this was discovered by Europeans. And on this day, in 1856, the distinguished educator, author, and advisor to Presidents Booker T. Washington was born. 1856, Booker T. Washington was born, part of the last generation of Black Americans born into slavery. He attended college in Virginia before being named head of newly established Black college, the Tuskegee Institute, at the age of 39 years old. When Southern lynchings reached a peak, Washington gave a speech known as the Atlantic Compromise, calling for Black progress through education and entrepreneurship. Rather than directly challenging Jim Crow segregation and disenfranchisement, he mobilized a nationwide coalition of middle-class Black people, church leaders, and white people who were philanthropists and politicians, with a long-term goal of building the community's economic strength and pride by focus on self-help schooling, culminating in his 1901 autobiography, Up from Slavery. Really incredible, incredible stuff. Success is to be measured not so much by the position that one has reached in life, but by the obstacles in which he's overcome. If you want to lift yourself up, lift someone else up. Excellent is to do a common thing in an uncommon way. No race can prosper until it learns that there is not much dignity in tilling a field as in writing a poem. I'll permit no man to narrow and degrade my soul by making me hate him. You can't hold a man down without staying down with him. Incredible quotes from him. And with that, I think we have to come to an end. So that is it for today's show. So thank you for listening to the GSMC America Still Beautiful podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I would like to ask that you please remember to subscribe